بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا مزيدا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. This is our 7th class on the explanation of the Siyam book in the book of Zad al-Mustaqni'. We stopped off at a statement by the author. He said, فَإِنْ صَامُوا بِشَهَادَةِ وَاحِدٍ 30 يَوْمًا فَلَمْ يُرَ الْهِلَالِ أَوْ صَامُوا لِأَجْلِ غَيْمٍ لَمْ يُفْطِرُوا. He combined between two issues. Pay close attention. He said in this statement, there's two issues. And you got to go over these again and again. Take good notes, pay attention, and go over them so you can understand. If we fast based on the sighting of one man in the beginning of Ramadan, and then at the end of Ramadan, we're on the 30th day, and we don't sight Ramadan. That's the first issue. The second issue, if we fast in the beginning of Ramadan based on the day of doubt, you remember we talked about that issue? According to the wrong opinion of this author, that if it's cloudy, we fast that day. He adopts that we should fast the day that amounts to, in reality, the day of doubt, if it's cloudy, when we go for sighting. What we do at the end of Ramadan, when there's no confirmed sighting, now we're at the end of Ramadan, there's no confirmed sighting at the end of the Ramadan, and it's those two scenarios that Ramadan started with, then what he's saying, if we're at the 30th day of Ramadan, there's no sighting, and Ramadan started off by the sighting of one person, or on that, started off with that day of doubt, then he says, we continue on and fast 31 days. First of all, let's take it in detail. If two testified to the start of Ramadan, and now we're on the 30th day of the month, at the end of Ramadan, the next day is Eid. That's agreed upon by the ulama. That's not even an issue. If Ramadan started with the testimony of two. However, the author makes it a problem, and pay close attention to this. He's saying, over here, if one person testified and confirmed the sighting at the beginning of Ramadan, he said the official Hanbali madhab is that we fast the 31st day of Ramadan. We continue and fast the 31st day of Ramadan. And then the Eid is after that. Why? They based the decision of the end of Ramadan and how we end Ramadan based on how Ramadan was initially confirmed. They based the decision of the end of Ramadan on how Ramadan was initially confirmed. When there was no sighting at the end of Ramadan, they went to how Ramadan was confirmed in the beginning. They said Ramadan must end by two witnesses. Here at the end of Ramadan, it's the 30th day. They said we should go on to fast 31. We don't have no witnesses to testify. Why? They said if we end Ramadan at 30th, we basically and in reality are going based on the testimony of one man. That man, who's that man? The man who testified in the start of Ramadan. We need two witnesses to end Ramadan. They said if we say that this Ramadan completes at the 30 days, then only one testified to that. In reality, we are taking the word of one man to the end of Ramadan. The man who in reality testified to the start of Ramadan. We need two, we don't have two. So what we'll do is continue and we'll fast 31 days. Basically, they tied the end of Ramadan to the sighting in the beginning. They said, we're going to go for 31 days. Why? Because we don't have no sighting. We don't have two witnesses. And we can't go by 30 days because that means we take the testimony of one. Who's that one? The one who initially told us Ramadan started. That's opinion in the Hanbali madhab, another opinion in the Hanbali madhab, and the opinion of Imam Ahmad, and this is the correct one, and it's the opinion of Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa. If it's at 30 days, Ramadan reaches 30 days, we don't have no one cited, we don't have two witnesses, then we finish 30 days, the next day is the Eid, which is the obvious, simple answer, simple, easy answer. We don't go by that 31-day opinion. We don't relate and tie the end of Ramadan to how Ramadan started, as the first opinion claimed to do. There's no relationship between the two. Why? We started Ramadan on the testimony of one, in accordance to the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We did that. It's over and done with. Now we're at the end of Ramadan. There's a totally new procedure here. The new procedure is how do we end Ramadan. It has nothing to do with the beginning of Ramadan. We go seek the moon on the 30th night of Ramadan. If we don't see it, we complete Ramadan 30 days. That's the way we do it. It has nothing to do with how Ramadan was confirmed in the beginning. And this is clearly the correct, simple, easy opinion. The first opinion, they are in a way trying to tie the end of Ramadan to the beginning. They say, okay, it's the end of Ramadan. We don't have two witnesses. If we say we'll go by 30 days, that means we in reality took the word of that man in the beginning, the one who confirmed the sighting. That's wrong and weak rationale, and many ulama responded to that. The second issue is the same. أو صاموا لأجل غيم لم يفطروا. The second opinion, the author says, if we're on the 30th day of Ramadan, there's no sighting, we don't have two witnesses, but this scenario is different than the one I just mentioned, where they said the beginning of Ramadan started with one man. Over here, they're saying if Ramadan started because of fasting the day of Dawah where the sky wasn't clear. Remember, that's the issue we discussed, in which the author adopted the wrong opinion of fasting when the sky is not clear, which we said is haram, and that in reality amounts to the day of Dawah. Now he's basing the end of Ramadan on that. He said, let's assume Ramadan started by fasting that day of Dawah. What do? He said, we fast 31 days, just like the previous scenario. Why? He says, because we were unsure. They may be correct that they need to fast 31 days since they started based on Dawah, and we said that's an improper and even a haram way to start. But this is not a scenario we even deal with. This one, this statement of the author is not even a scenario we deal with. Why? They should not have started Ramadan, like we said earlier, based on fasting that day of Dawah, because when they said if it's an unclear sky, we're going to start our fast, they shouldn't have even done that to start off with. The method used to start Ramadan that they used was wrong. Now, at the end of Ramadan, like the previous scenario, it doesn't connect and tie to the beginning of Ramadan. You started Ramadan wrong, that's a whole issue there. Now it's the end of Ramadan, either we sight the moon or we complete 30 days without having anything to do with the start of Ramadan. And keep in mind, like we say, this is not even a scenario we should even be dealing with, because we said early on that the scenario of fasting the day when the cloud is when it's cloudy, based on Dawah, is a wrong opinion. وَمَنْ رَأَى وَحْدَهُ هِلَالَ رَمَضَانَ وَرُدَّ قَوْلَهُ أَوْ رَأَى هِلَالَ شَوَّالَ صَامَ. In this statement, if a person, the author goes on to say, if a person sees the moon for the start of Ramadan alone, he's alone, he sees the moon. Or if he goes to the judge or the Khalifa and they reject his testimony. That's one. B, if a person sees the moon at the end of Ramadan, in both of those scenarios I just mentioned, he continues to fast. Let's break that down. Someone sights the moon. He's alone. Somewhere in the world, he's alone. He sights the moon, he must fast. Because we said for the beginning of Ramadan, all you need is one. He himself, one. He witnessed Ramadan. All we need is one, you start. That's the first one. Or the author saying, if one person sights the moon, he goes to the Khalifa, he goes to the judge, he goes to the Sheikh, they refuse his testimony. Maybe he has a credibility issue. Maybe the sheikh or the judge rejected him for his eyesight or for any other reason. He's rejected. He must begin to fast Ramadan on his own. For him, Ramadan began. So in summary, if a Muslim sees the moon on his own, he must fast. Whether it may be he is in some part of the globe alone by himself, he's traveling all by himself, or the sheikh, the judge, the khalifa rejected this testimony. In either scenario, he's seeing the moon, he fasts. Then the author goes, that's just the first part of the statement. Then the author says, if a person sees the moon for the end of Shawwal, the end of Ramadan, which is the moon for Shawwal. He sees the moon at the end of Ramadan. He sees it by himself. Does he continue to fast or declare Eid on his own? We say if he sees the moon in the start of Ramadan, he gotta fast, even if he's alone. Now at the end of Ramadan, he sees the moon for the end of Ramadan. We say he can't break his fast at the end of Ramadan. Why? Are you being inconsistent? We said for the end of Ramadan, how many do we need? Two. For the beginning of Ramadan, how many do we need? One. Now let me repeat that statement like the author said it and you'll understand it very well. Here's how the author said it. If a person sees the moon for the start of Ramadan alone, or if his testimony is rejected, or if a person sees the moon for the end of Ramadan, he fasts in both scenarios. That's exactly how the author worded it. Now let's go and backtrack a little bit and discuss these statements in a little bit more detail. I cite the moon alone, or I cite the moon and the leader says, you're rejected. We're not going to take your testimony. The author said, I should fast. My Ramadan begins even if the rest of the ummah didn't start. That's for the beginning. This is the opinion of the majority of the ulama, and among them is Imam Ahmad, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahl al-Ra'i, and Ibn al-Mundhir, and others. He must fast on his own even if the ummah didn't fast. He cited the moon, and all it takes is one to cite the moon, and he himself is one. That's it. What is the proof on that? فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever witnesses the month must fast. They may have no one confirmed to testify or witness to it, but you yourself, once you've seen it, you've witnessed the month. They haven't witnessed it, but you witnessed it. So this verse applies to you. You must start your Ramadan. Also proof is sumu li ru'yati wa aftiru li ru'yati. Like the verse they said, fast for the sighting of the new moon and break your fast for the sighting of the new moon. To you who seen it, it's confirmed. You seen it, you cited it, you follow along and you fast. For them, they didn't. It's not confirmed to them because your testimony is rejected. The third proof on this matter is that to that person, to that individual, Ramadan's been confirmed by his own sighting. He witnessed Ramadan based on his own sighting. To the others, to the ummah, since his testimony was rejected or he's alone, it's still Sha'ban. And that's how we go by. There's a second opinion, and it's an opinion also attributed to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and it's what Ibn Taymiyyah adopts, and Al-Hasan al-Basri and Ibn Sirin and others adopt, but it's not the official Hanbali madhab. The official Hanbali madhab is the first opinion I mentioned. This opinion, they say we reject the person should reject his own testimony, meaning he shouldn't start Ramadan on his own. Their proof for that is that the ummah needs to start Ramadan as an ummah. صَوْمُكُمْ يَوْمَ تَصُومُونَ. You fast the day people fast, the hadith says, and you slaughter the day people slaughter. The hadith means the ummah as a whole fast together. If the conditions are met, that's true. The ummah fasts as a ummah. The problem is this person cited the moon on his own, or he was rejected. So Ramadan's been confirmed to this person individually. The hadith, صَوْمُكُمْ يَوْمَ تَصُومُونَ, meaning implies that the ummah should fast together. Yes, that's in general circumstances. However, here there's an exceptional situation where the individual has confirmed the beginning of Ramadan based on his own sighting. The ulama of the second opinion, told the ulama of the first opinion, you're telling this man to go fast on his own? Are you saying that if he sights the moon for Dhul Hijjah on his own, if this man sights the moon for Dhul Hijjah, the start of Dhul Hijjah on his own, yeah, the ummah fast another day. Does he go, since it's Dhul Hijjah, does he go stand on Arafat by himself, and then the next day the Hujjaj go, and then Muna, he stands and goes to Mina on a different day than the Ummah, or he goes to stone the shaitan on a different day than the Ummah? The Hujjaj are doing one thing, and he's doing another thing because he sighted the moon on his own. The first group responded back and said, no, you got it wrong. The month we allow the testimony of one is only the start of Ramadan. The end of Ramadan and every other month, including Dhul Hijjah, needs the testimony of two, so your rationale is unfounded. Ibn Taymiyyah, who's part of the people who took the second opinion, he used to adopt a special opinion that many disagreed with, in that the crescent, the hilal, it's not really considered a shar'i hilal unless it becomes widespread, known, and popular among the people. Many, he considered that as an additional restriction. Many of the ulama disagree with him on that rationale. As to the hadith that implies fasting with the ummah or the group, or the fasting is the fasting with the group, in the second opinion, that's an overall general situation. That's how it usually is. But there's exceptions, because if one confirmed the sighting on his own, he witnessed Ramadan on his own. But the overall situation is that the ummah, of course, fasts as a whole. The next point. أو رأى هلال شوال أو رأى هلال شوال صام. This individual sees the crescent of the end of Ramadan, which is the hilal that belongs to Shawwal. He sees it on his own. Someone sees the moon that starts the month of Shawwal, which is the month after Ramadan. That means Ramadan is over. So does he go and break his fast on his own? No, we already said that. Why? The majority opinion, Hanafiya, Malikiya, Hanabila, of course the author of this book adopts it. If you see the hilal, the crescent for the end of Ramadan, alone, you don't declare your own Eid, nor do you break your fast. You have to fast the next day. Why? Because he's one man. The rule for the end of Ramadan, we need two. Now, a second opinion, Maliki, Shafi'iyya, and Ibn Aqil, and Ibn Hazm, said he breaks his fast, but he doesn't do so publicly to avoid the fitna or the accusations. Why? Why does he do it in secrecy? Because, for example, a woman on her menstrual cycle, or a traveler who's excused, they're exempted from fasting. But they shouldn't be walking around eating out of respect to the month of Ramadan, out of respect to Muslims, and more importantly, to avoid being accused. In fact, some narrated the ijma' that if one is allowed to break his fast, if someone's allowed to break his fast during the month of Ramadan for an excuse, it should be done in secrecy. The correct opinion of those two opinions is that he does not break his fast if he sees the moon for the end of Ramadan. Why? They said he could be mistaken. That's okay. But the more important reason is because we know by proof that to end Ramadan or every other month is beginning and end, it requires two witnesses. Someone will say you're inconsistent. You say in the previous statement of the author that if one individual cites the moon of Ramadan and his imam rejects him, he fasts on his own, which is correct. Then you're trying to tell me at the end of Ramadan, if he cites the moon for the end of Ramadan, he should not break his fast, he should not declare Eid on his own, or at least break his fast. You're being inconsistent, they say. Notice how delicate fiqh is. We need by proof one to confirm the start of Ramadan. If he's seen the crescent, the moon for Ramadan, and he was rejected, he must fast. Because all it takes is one. We have the proof on that. We're people who follow the proof. To him, it became obligated to fast. Whereas at the end of Ramadan, we're not being inconsistent because the proof tells us that for the end of Ramadan and every other month, other than the beginning of Ramadan, you need two for the beginning and end. And he is one alone, so he doesn't break his fast. Let's assume a scenario. Two people seen the crescent. They're credible. They didn't go to the leader for some reason. Do we listen to them? First of all, it does not need to go to the leader or judge to declare it as a condition for it. Why? Because this falls under what we said, reporting or informing. It falls under ikhbar, not shahada, which is testimony. If it's ikhbar, it's like reporting or informing or narrating hadith or calling the adhan. It's like relaying information. A shahada is different, it's testimony. A shahada needs to go to the judge to declare it, look into the situation and declare it. Ibn al-Qudama al-Mughni said, if two credible men see the hilal, the moon of Ramadan, they can break their fast because of the testimony of each other, as well as anyone else who knows these two people and knows that they're credible. فَإِنْ شَهِدَ شَاهِدًا فَصُومُوا وَأَفْطِرُوا. In Sunan al-Nasa'i, the hadith is, if two witnesses testify, then break your fast, according to their citing. This is not considered testimony, which needs to go to the judge to scrutinize it. Al-Mughni said, if those two see the crescent of Ramadan, they can break the fast for each other's testimony. Others in the madhab of Ahmad disputed that, but that's the correct opinion because that is what the hadith implies. Another scenario. They go to the imam and judge, two of them. They inform the judge they seen the moon. While walking out, word spreads that two people seen the moon. Do we go by their testimony if their testimony gets rejected by the judge? The answer to that is it depends on why the judge rejected their testimony. If he rejected their testimony because the status of their credibility is unknown, then the judge really didn't rule on that. He just doesn't know if they're trustworthy. Those who hear and know these two people and know they're credible, they follow each other's testimony, and those who know them can break their fast based on these guys' testimony. Because the judge didn't rule, he just doesn't know their status. That's the first scenario. If the judge rejected them because they are fasiq, it's confirmed to the judge they're fasiq, one of them or both of them, then you cannot use their testimony because the imam ruled based on what he has of knowledge of these people. Another scenario. If two people say we seen the moon, if they meet up in the masjid, one man says I seen the moon, the other says oh I did too. Yet they don't know the status of each other. Do they break the fast and declare Eid because each one of them said oh I seen the moon, the other said I seen? No. Why? Because they each independently confirmed the sighted, but they don't know the status of each other. He could be credible, he could be a fasiq. So you don't take the other person's word if you don't know his status. Another scenario. Someone may be in prison or in some kind of situation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and guard you from that. Someone doesn't know if it's Ramadan, if it started or not. He's in prison, he's in a solitary. He doesn't know what month it is. That actually happened to me. My first night in prison, I woke up to the Eid. I was in solitary. The first night I woke up, it was Eid. There's no phone, there's no communication. No one's going to talk to you and tell you. Some are held in prisons where they may not know the entire month. Is this Ramadan or is this Muharram? They may lose tracks of weeks or months, not just days. The answer to that is, what do? Simple. You do ijtihad. Ijtihad the best way you can. That's like facing the Qibla. You're in a place where you don't know where the Qibla is. You must face the Qibla to make your salah. But you're not good at directions. East, west, and north, and south. You're not good at it. You don't have an app on your phone. You can't ask. You do ijtihad as best as you can and you make your salah. The same is for the start and end of Ramadan. For one, who's in a status like that, who's in prison, and he's lost communication with the world, and he can't ask or seek or pursue that matter. Take a scenario based on that. If he finds out during Ramadan, it's Ramadan, and his guess, his ijtihad is good, he's good. That's the first scenario. The second one is he finds out that what he fasted turned out to be after Ramadan. That's good, because it's like the status of someone who made up Ramadan. There's no problem with that. He fasted August, and Ramadan turned out to be in June. It's as if he made up Ramadan. That's good. His ijtihad is good. He did the best he could. The third scenario, he fasted a month, then suddenly he gets a letter from his family telling him in 2 days Ramadan's going to start. Or the guard or the chaplain or someone tells him in a few days Ramadan's going to start. He already fasted the month. What does he do? What he did in the wrong timing. He get ajr, but Ramadan, he must fast again. He must fast again. That's like, for example, making asr. Someone made asr. They go visit friends. The friends say, Yalla, let's go to the masjid and make asr. He says, what are you guys talking about? I made asr about an hour ago. My phone was wrong. The timing on my phone was wrong. Or maybe he was listening to the Quran radio station in Mecca. They called the adhan. And he thought it was his app on his phone. It was that adhan, but it was really the adhan for another salah in Mecca. And he prayed the asr an hour ago. Does he say, okay, you guys go to the masjid, I already made it? No, you gotta do it again. These types of scenarios, they can go on and on. But let's take another one, a final one. If one, for example, fasted 30 days and he found out 15 of those turned out to be from Sha'ban, the month before Ramadan, and 15 were part of Ramadan. The 15 before Ramadan, he needs to make them up. He did them before the proper timing. That's like one who prayed Asr before its time. Or similar to that. If he fasted 30 days and he finds out days he fasted were days of Eid of Dhul Hijjah or the Eid of Ramadan. The 3 days of Eid Dhul Hijjah or the Eid of Ramadan. Some of the days that he was fasting thinking that Ramadan turned out to be Eid. The Eid of Dhul Hijjah or which are 3 days, and the Eid of Ramadan. What does he do? He must make up those days because it's haram to fast those days. This is some scenarios that may come in handy in the future or give you and broaden and enlighten your mind as to how the ulama think. And actually, the scenarios go on and on, but we don't want to go beyond our time. What I advise, however, is you take this, the notes that you're taking, go over them again and again. You have to do homework on your own. To be a faqih, you have to do homework on your own. Go over these again and again. And you may want to listen to the audio again. Possibly that's even as good as going over your notes. Listen to the audio several times. Then you're going to realize that what we're saying is going to sink in. Why? For two reasons. The start of this book is somewhat difficult. I'm trying to break it down as easy as I can, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid me in that. But the start of this booklet is slightly difficult. You know, these issues are slightly difficult. And also, you're in the beginning of a new knowledge. This is fiqh. Like in Tawheed. In the beginning, some were having difficulty understanding. But as time goes on, the 10 classes, then 20 classes, then alhamdulillah, I think beyond 30, if I'm not mistaken, people found it easier. The same with this. After a while, you're going to learn how the ulama think and how they go back and forth in their proof, and it's going to become much easier. So it's difficult in that the substance of what we study in the first part of this book, it's going to get, the matters are going to get much practical for you as an individual. The citing in that, you know, someone will say that's not practical, but that's part of fiqh. We have to go by the curriculum. But it's slightly difficult. It's slightly difficult in that the substance of what we study is difficult, and also it's difficult in that most of you are in the process of starting the learning of fiqh, which is a new knowledge. So you got to take your time and gradually break in to understanding the fiqh. That's why I advise you to go over your notes several times, go over the audio. That's, you get ajr for that. You're sitting at home. You want to understand this fiqh. You want to understand this ilm. That's a ibadah. You purify your intention. You don't just go to a halaqah. If, in universities, they tell you what you study in a university, you have to do, 5 hours equivalent to that or so on of homework in your house to get it to sink in and register. It's more than that with this ilm. You don't just go and say, Wallah, I attended the halaqah and that's it. You put your book at home and you don't open it till the next day or till the following class. No, you got to go over and over it. You wouldn't find no alim that used to go to the halaqah and, like many perceive or assume, as soon as he goes home, he puts his books away and then the next day he wipes the dust off them and goes and takes the books to the next halaqah. No, in between that, there's a lot of studying going, a lot of trying. This like I told you, don't spend your time memorizing, but most definitely, if it's a hadith, yes, try to memorize it if you can. But like I said, the wording of this book is difficult. Focus more on trying to understand it. That's my advice to you. Jazakumullahu khaira, and forgive me for